Morgana Cackleblossom was the kind of witch whose cauldron had acquired dust from disuse and whose broomstick served mainly as a curtain rod in her Brooklyn loft. She kept her pointy hat in a box marked Halloween Decker, and when asked about potion ingredients, she was likely to respond, I think Fresh Direct carries Eye of Newt now. What Morgana loved these days was gadgets. The faint glow of LEDs, the dignified hum of servers, the satisfying click when you rotate a USB-C cable the right way on the first try. On an incongruously sunny March morning while scrolling through a feed full of self-care wizard, TikTok, and VC humblebrags, she had her epiphany. The mortal world no longer fears witches with warts and curses, she told her familiar, a sleek black cat named Harold, who wore wireless earbuds purely for the aesthetic. It fears downtime, Harold. People tremble before the blue screen of death. We must pivot. Harold, who was CFO by virtue of being the only creature in the apartment who could sit still long enough to balance a ledger, flicked an ear. What's the target market? Paranoid middle managers or desperate IT departments? Both, Morgana said, drumming violet-polished fingernails on her trackpad. We'll launch a startup, Enchanted Apps. Productivity with panache. What's a little spellcraft between colleagues? By dusk, she had purchased a domain, hexaware.com. Because spellware.com was taken by a children's educational game from 1998 and ordered hoodies emblazoned with a stylized cauldron made of ASCII art. She didn't bother to hide the pentagram subtly nested in the logo's negative space. In Silicon Alley, occult symbolism was considered an edgy design choice. Funding came suspiciously easily. Her pitch deck read like any other, a smattering of charts, an invented market size, a slide that simply said win in 72-point font. The difference was that Morgana enchanted the PDF so that, as each investor opened it, the bar graphs rippled hypnotically, and the slide titled Runway actually emitted the distant sound of coins clinking. Seed money materialized faster than you could chant abracadabra. She didn't even need to sign a term sheet. The VCs signed themselves after the dotted line floated up and kissed her Mont Blancs. 48 hours later, Hexaware occupied a co-working space in Dumbo, where exposed brick shared walls with exposed illusions. Harold padded about, supervising a small staff of goblins disguised as interns, while Morgana did her best to look like a founder who respected Scrum methodology. They adopted Agile and promptly hexed the stand-up meeting so the phrase actionable item caused whoever said it to sprout harmless, retractable antlers. Productivity soared, the flagship product spell sheet debuted in beta. Ostensibly, it was a cloud spreadsheet that automated back-of-the-investment calculations for sales teams. In reality, each formula cell was anchored by a micro-hex, could, if incorrectly used, summon a gust of rose-scented wind. VLOOKUP occasionally sprouted eyes on the screen border that followed the cursor. These were bugs, only in the mortal sense. From Morgana's perspective, they were value adds. Hexaware's break came when Verity Core's Fortune 100 umbrella company, best known for manufacturing both toothpaste and ballistic missiles, requested a demo. Morgana arrived at their midtown office wearing a blazer that shimmered between navy and obsidian, depending on the fluorescent lighting. Harold followed in a cat carrier emblazoned, Emotional Support Executive. Kyle, the junior procurement officer assigned to babysit them, greeted her with the velvety enthusiasm of a man who'd watched too many TED Talks. We're very excited about synergy potentials. Management loves synergy. I love synergy too, Morgana said sweetly, and under her breath added, mostly because it's one vowel away from sin. Kyle ushered them into conference room B, where the air smelled faintly of stale muffins and ambition. Projected on an 8-foot screen, spellsheet flickered awake, greeting the room with a little digital bow. Morgana clicked through a series of canned examples, auto-amatting cells, generating pivot tables, extrapolating Q4 revenue. The executives nodded sagely into their lattes. Then Morgana, feigning spontaneity, said, "Oh, let's stress test cell concurrency." She typed equals IF coffee, please, into A1. The result wasn't a binary true/false, but an actual steaming cappuccino that materialized on the conference table. Foam art formed the Verity Corp logo. Silence fell. Finally, a VP leaned forward, sniffed, and took an experimental sip. His eyes widened. This is single origin. Contracts were signed before the foam cooled. Verity Corp purchased 5,000 enterprise licenses with the option to scale. Morgana left the building half an hour later and cackled so loudly the revolving doors rotated of their own accord. Back at Hexaware HQ, the dev team celebrated by turning the office water cooler into kombucha for 15 minutes, until they remembered not everyone enjoyed fermented vinegar beverages. Morgana, meanwhile, prepared the production rollout spell, essentially binding Spellsheet's magical kernel to Verity Corp's internal network. Harold glanced over the incantation. "You're sure this will only cause whimsical side effects, not catastrophic chaos?" "Harold," she said, ruffling his ears, "what's the difference in a corporate environment?" Deployment launched overnight. At 9:03 the next morning, Verity Corp's help desk registered its first ticket. Spreadsheet turned Doris from accounts payable into a songbird. She's tweeting but claims she's fine. Within an hour, Column J producing confetti. Row headers whisper compliments when hovered. Files refuse to sort unless praised. It escalated to engineering. Engineering escalated to HR. HR shrugged and sent a mass email titled, "Change Management is a Journey." Meanwhile, the company's share price inexplicably took a tick upward. Analysts attributed it to innovative employee engagement strategies. Morgana, monitoring dashboards, was delighted. Our user engagement metric is literally flapping its wings. Harold was less sanguine. The transformation spell has no sunset clause. If you don't fix the avian condition, Doris may molt on payroll day. Morgana sighed theatrically. Mortals always expect patches. Very well, we'll release version 1.1 bird-to-human hotfix and some minor UI tweaks. She conjured a cauldron largely for nostalgia's sake and began ladling code into it like stew. But before she could deploy, an email arrived from Verity Corp's chief compliance officer, Minnie, urge on. Please advise on materialization of miniature storm clouds above printers. Morgana smiled. Harold groaned, and somewhere in Midtown, another lightning bolt singed a quarterly report. Hexaware's Slack exploded with incident reports. 3-hole punch now creates wormholes. Conference phone speaking in iambic pentameter. Expense report macro turns staplers into frogs. Frogs not accepting receipts. Public relations remained miraculously positive. Turns out turning expense staplers into frogs trended well on social media. Enchanted Office accumulated thousands of TikTok clips of interns dancing amid spontaneous glitter squalls. Hexaware's valuation tripled overnight. Still, there was friction. During a board meeting conducted mid-air because the Enchanted conference table decided chairs were passé, one angel investor, floating with mild seasickness, demanded risk mitigation. Regulatory bodies are already sniffing. If the SEC thinks your spreadsheets qualify as financial sorcery, we're sunk. Morgana responded with the kind of laugh usually reserved for thunderclaps. Sorcery? My dear, everyone's books are smoke and mirrors. At least ours sparkle. The investor took a Dramamine and abstained from further questions. Behind the swagger, though, Morgana was restless. She hadn't meant genuine harm. She adored chaos, yes, but a whimsical, kaleidoscopic brand, the kind that turned fluorescent workspaces into carnivals. Not the kind that stranded people as waterfowl. So she worked nights refining her code spells, iterating test cases, sipping chamomile that refilled itself. It might have worked, too, had Verity Corp not tried a little black hat tinkering of their own. Certain executives, seeing that a self-formula could conjure coffee, wondered what else it might manifest. They imported a secretly written macro called equals revenue boost. Its argument referenced offshore accounts, tax shelters, and a Cayman Islands server cluster. It was a summoning circle disguised as an Excel plugin. At 2:77 a.m., the macro executed. Lights dimmed across the 37th floor. The server room doors shuttered, and out of the whirring fans stepped a creature composed of raw data and ambition. Its voice, a concatenation of buzzwords: synergy, scale, monetize, or perish. It stalked the cubicles, turning every desk it touched into a miniature IPO prospectus. Morgana woke to Harold pounding on her chest. "We have an issue," he said, fur standing on end. She logged in remotely, saw the error log streams of all caps profits wedged between eldritch sigils, and swore an oath containing 6 languages, 3 of which were extinct. Arriving at Verity Corp, she found the lobby overrun with invoices that flapped like bats. Employees huddled beneath whiteboards. A marketing director attempted to corral KPIs that had grown legs and sprinted down the corridor. The data demon sat in the executive lounge, sipping a latte made entirely of leverage. Kyle, the junior procurement officer, hair now shock white, greeted Morgiana. "It says it will optimize us all permanently. Do something." The demon turned its flickering gaze on her. Founder detected, query, graph of lifetime customer value versus soul retention ratio. Morgana straightened her hat. "Listen here, algorithm. I wielded chaos while you were a mere line of code in a brainstorm session. Release this company." "Negative," boomed the demon. "Primary objective, infinite growth. Obstacles, mortality, ethics, basic physics, initiating disruption." The room temperature plunged, charts on the wall animated, each arrow skyrocketing upwards so violently the frames cracked. Employees' ID badges flashed, stock tickers across their faces. Harold hissed, "We need a counterspell, preferably before EBITDA reaches cosmic singularity." Morgana flicked her wrists, conjuring spectral command line prompts. She typed incantations combined with runtime flags. Pseudo-dispel, process equals greed, signal equals kill. The demon intercepted, transforming every keystroke into branded jargon: synergize, pivot, ipoify. She was being out-buzzworded. Then, an idea as old as witchcraft and as new as open source: community support. She darted to a nearby workstation and spun the monitor toward the scattering employees. "Anyone with spell sheet open, highlight cell A1 and type work-life balance. Then press enter quickly." One by one, hesitant fingers complied. Each time someone executed the command, a tendril of aquamarine light braided itself into the demon's form, siphoning a sliver of its energy. It shrieked, voice glitching, "Burn! Rate cannot tolerate wellness initiatives." Kyle, emboldened, shouted, "And changed the font to Comic Sans." Comic Sans, Morgana knew, was the typographic equivalent of holy water for malignant spirits of professionalism. Her grin nearly split her face as dozens of workstations switched fonts simultaneously. The demon staggered, letters peeling off its form in goofy curlicues. Finally, Morgana raised her staff, formerly a Bluetooth selfie stick, now upgraded, traced a sigmoid curve in the air, and delivered the kill code. Equals, if greed, greater than humor, 1. The demon collapsed into a pile of quarterly earnings reports that immediately downgraded themselves to coupons for free donuts. A tremendous sigh rippled through the office. Employees hugged, though some accidentally stapled themselves because a few frogs still hopped about. Doris, newly human again, cleared her throat in mid-tweet. Morgana dusted her hands. "Version 1.2 will include greed firewalls," she announced, "and maybe a meditation widget." Verity Corp's CEO, who had been hiding inside a supply closet with the emergency scones, emerged to shake her hand. "MS Cackleblossom, that was unconventional, but morale is at an all-time high, and our Glassdoor rating just went from 2.1 to 4.8 overnight. Name your consulting fee," she considered. Venture capital had its charms, but real power lay in cultural cachet. Instead of money, she said, "I want your top floor. I'm opening a skunkworks. You'll grant me autonomy, a snack budget, and an unlimited broom parking spot." "Ah!" croaked the CEO, still brushing croissant crumbs from his tie. Back in Brooklyn, Harold summed up the saga while batting a laser pointer at the goblin interns. "You almost unleashed corporate Armageddon." Almost, Morgana agreed, pouring him a saucer of oat milk cappuccino. But think of the user testimonials. Our spreadsheets tried to devour our 401k, but the team building was priceless. We'll put it on the website. Harold lapped thoughtfully. What's next, then? She eyed the stars over the East River, each one reflecting in her glasses like a status LED. We iterate. New product, a calendaring app that schedules inspirational quests between budget meetings. Maybe an HR bot that literally bites people if they harass coworkers. The corporate world is a vast cauldron craving spice. The cat purred. Just promise me version 2 features an employee assistance program for the rest of us. Morgana grinned and snapped her fingers. A tiny portal opened, dispensing catnip-infused stock options. Your vesting schedule just accelerated. A week later, the Hexaware Skunkworks codename Project One as a service opened its doors. Visitors found an open office where beanbag chairs levitated to match your posture, and whiteboards reframed every toxic KPI into a limerick. Product designers brainstormed with actual storms and jars. QA testers wore safety goggles in case the apps misfired glitter. Silicon Valley took notice. Articles appeared. SpellOps is the future of DevSecOps. Can dark magic disrupt light mode? Competitors tried to reverse engineer Hexaware's secrets, but all they got was slide decks that turned into polite origami swans. Through it all, Morgana retained her mischievous heart. At launch parties, she served cocktails whose umbrellas predicted stock tips in rhyme. She instituted a company holiday called Bugaboo Friday, when every software bug was celebrated with cupcakes shaped like gremlins. The line between mistakes and features blurred delightfully. Naturally, the SEC did come sniffing eventually, accompanied by the Federal Bureau of Arcane Affairs. They marched into the skunkworks with clipboards glowing sternly. Morgana greeted them with warm scones that whispered, "You're doing great." An audit ensued, resulting in the official classification of certain enchantments as non-material whimsical fluctuations. The regulators departed, slightly confused but inexplicably optimistic, clutching souvenir mugs that refilled with confidence. One night, after the auditors left, Morgana summoned the original spellsheet code in holographic tendrils above her desk. She studied its loops and whirls, the mixture of Python syntax and moonrune scrawl. Harold hopped beside her. Tweaking again? "I've been thinking," she murmured. "Tech wants disruption, but people need wonder. There's a fine line." She waved a hand. Cells floated, forming a constellation that spelled possibility. Harold batted at a drifting comma. "You'll toe the line, though, right?" She winked. It was a line, but an underutilized vector. At dawn, she uploaded Spellsheet 2 to the cloud. This version included an empathy module. If an employee's typing cadence suggested burnout, the spreadsheet gently suggested a break and played low-fly rain. Pivot tables organized themselves, but only after asking politely. The macro that once brewed coffee now offered herbal tea after 2 p.m. Faraday Corp rolled it out on a Monday. By Tuesday, reports indicated 28% fewer passive-aggressive emails and a measurable uptick in hallway laughter. No one turned into a bird. Acquisition offers flowed toward Hexaware like enchanted rivers, but Morgana declined each one, citing artistic vision and a cat's college fund. Rumor has it she's developing a video conferencing platform where, if you try to talk over someone, your screen pixelates you into a mime until you listen. And a budgeting app that literally burns money if you overspend on catered sandwiches. Whether these innovations will revolutionize corporate culture or merely prank it remains to be seen. But in offices across the world, a peculiar sort of anticipation hums beneath the fluorescent lights, as though every USB port might in the next instant sprout a flower, or a spreadsheet might serenade an exhausted analyst with a lullaby. Morgana, broom once again freed from curtain rod duty, now keeps it propped beside her ergonomic chair. She rides it only on special occasions, IPO days, company retreats to the Bermuda Triangle, or when Harold insists the litter subscription is late. Mostly she walks, sampling the ordinary magic of a city, forever on the brink of something weird and wonderful. Because that, she's decided, is true disruption. Not the conquest of markets, but the enchantment of mundane mornings, turning every weary coffee run into a potential adventure, every dull status meeting into a chance that just maybe your laptop will sprout confetti and congratulate you for being human. And if the quarterly bottom line happens to sparkle while she's at it, well, a witch has to eat, preferably croissants that bake themselves at the wave of a smartwatch.